You can feel it the moment you step inside a grocery store. The air heavier, the aisles quieter, the prices climbing like a warning written in plain sight. This isn't panic. This is the slow, cold arrival of something deeper, something Canada hasn't felt in generations. And before this story unfolds any further, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because what's happening right now affects millions of lives, and it's a story you need to witness. It's a shift in the lives of millions, and if we're not paying attention, we might miss the turning point of an entire era.
You see it in the quietest moments. A parent at the grocery store, counting coins like they weigh more than gold. A young couple staring at the price tag on bread, calculating silently how many days it will last. This is not panic. This is the slow grind of survival. A tension that seeps into every corner of daily life. Families who once filled their carts now leave with only what they must. Meals are measured in portions, in necessity, in the unspoken calculation of what can I afford today. The air itself feels heavier when you know your income cannot stretch any farther.
You hear it in conversations whispered between coworkers. Someone skips lunch to save for the rent. Another picks up extra shifts, even though their body is tired, their mind frayed. Anxiety clings to every interaction, a silent companion that whispers, one mistake, one missed paycheck, and everything falls apart. The middle class is shrinking, edges fraying, lives becoming a careful negotiation between dignity and survival. Across Canada, income is swallowed by essentials: food, rent, transportation, electricity. The basics, once manageable, now demand sacrifices. Comfort disappears first, then choice, then the small freedoms that make life livable. Families speak in numbers now: calories against cost, nutrition against necessity, hope against reality. A jug of milk, once routine, now triggers the same careful weighing as a mortgage payment. This is modern living under pressure, a slow-burning crisis shaping every household. You see it on the faces of seniors, trying to make fixed incomes stretch in a world that no longer respects fixed. You see it in young adults who believe the future would offer more, not less. It is not a sudden collapse, but a creeping weight, pressing on families quietly, relentlessly. And beneath all of it, fear spreads. Not the loud kind, the quiet, insidious kind that wakes you at 3 a.m., makes you check your bank account twice, makes you wonder if the life you built is slipping away before your eyes. This isn't just financial pressure, it's human pressure. The strain of millions trying to survive a storm they didn't create, yet feel every day, in every decision, in every moment of silence.
This is the reality of 2026, and it is only the beginning. The numbers are cold, but their impact is anything but. Official data shows that food prices continue to climb faster than wages, slowly eroding the ability of ordinary Canadians to feed their families. Milk, eggs, bread, fresh produce, items that once felt routine now arrive with a hidden cost, forcing households to make impossible choices. Recent reports indicate that millions are skipping meals or relying on cheaper, less nutritious alternatives just to make ends meet. The strain is not hypothetical. It is measured in empty shelves, smaller portions, and the quiet resignation of those who once had stability. Housing costs add another layer of pressure. National housing data confirms rents rising sharply across major provinces, with some urban centers seeing increases far outpacing income growth. Mortgage holders are not spared. Analysts estimate that average monthly payments have surged by hundreds of dollars over the last year alone, stretching families to the breaking point. Credit card debt climbs as households borrow to cover essentials, a cycle that official indicators warn could become unsustainable. Debt is no longer a tool. It is a lifeline that grows heavier with every passing month. Food insecurity has moved from the margins to the mainstream. Reports estimate that millions of Canadians now struggle to afford consistent, nutritious meals, with food bank usage reaching unprecedented levels. These are not abstract figures. They are human lives measured in hunger, stress, and compromise. Even regions traditionally considered resilient now show strain, with affordability indexes slipping across multiple provinces. Analysts note that when wage growth lags behind basic costs, the effects ripple through every corner of society. Energy, transportation, and utilities, once predictable, have become volatile, each fluctuation reverberating through household budgets. Families now calculate expenses daily, as though survival were a ledger, not a life. The difference between income and essential costs has widened, creating a gap that official data confirms but cannot fully convey. A gap between statistics and the lived reality, between numbers and the gnawing anxiety that accompanies them. This is the quiet, persistent erosion of stability. Inflation may slow on paper, but the cost of living continues its relentless climb. Affordability indexes falling, debt rising, hunger spreading. Every report confirms what Canadians already feel with every purchase, every payment, every meal skipped. This is no longer about percentages or averages. This is about survival, about the human cost behind the numbers, about a society beginning to realize that stability is no longer guaranteed. The crisis didn't appear out of nowhere. It came as a series of pressures, each one feeding the next, a chain reaction that no household, no family could escape. Interest rates rose first, subtle at first, almost unnoticed, then steadily, crushing monthly budgets. Families with mortgages or lines of credit felt the weight immediately. Every percentage point added stress, turning manageable payments into urgent, impossible decisions. What was once a routine transaction, a mortgage payment, a utility bill, became a moment of fear. Construction shortages compounded the pressure. Analysts estimate that tens of thousands of new housing units were delayed or canceled due to labor gaps, material costs, and regulatory slowdowns. Cities already stretched to capacity found their streets lined not with opportunity, but with scarcity. Renters and first-time buyers alike saw the dream of stability slip further away. Supply could not meet demand, and scarcity always carries a price, one measured in anxiety, compromise, and sacrifice. More people, fewer homes, and rising costs created a pressure cooker, and households felt it first, in their budgets, in their meals, in their quiet, exhausted conversations at night. Global forces pressed in as well. Supply chain disruptions, volatile energy markets, and unpredictable transportation costs drove prices higher. Small delays, harvests postponed, shipments rerouted, ripple through communities, touching the smallest towns and largest cities alike. Essentials became unpredictable. Families recalculated constantly, unsure if what they could afford today would be gone tomorrow. Every effort met another challenge: rising demand, inflationary pressure, construction delays. Temporary relief became fleeting comfort, barely enough to breathe before the next burden arrived.
Each factor fed the next. Inflation pressed on wages, wages pressed on spending, spending pressed on savings, savings pressed on debt, and debt pressed on hope. Families felt it first in small increments, a missed bill here, a skipped meal there, until the accumulation became undeniable. This was not one cause, not a single failure. It was a system unraveling, a domino effect stretching across the country. Canada felt it in every household, every city, every province. This is why fear is no longer quiet. It is persistent, relentless, threaded into the daily decisions of millions. The storm is no longer on the horizon, it is here. It is visible. It is inevitable unless the chain is broken. The consequences are no longer abstract. They are lives, homes, and futures unraveling quietly, relentlessly, in real time. Foreclosures are rising, slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, then with a momentum that cannot be ignored. Families who once prided themselves on stability now find themselves forced from the homes they worked decades to afford. Neighborhoods feel it first. Abandoned doors, empty windows. Analysts estimate thousands of mortgages are slipping into delinquency, a shadow spreading through cities and towns that were once thought secure. Renters are not spared. National data shows rents consuming larger shares of income across the country, leaving families to choose between food, medicine, and shelter. Parents skip meals so their children can eat. Seniors ration heat and electricity to stretch their pensions. Even those employed full-time find themselves teetering on the edge, caught in a cycle where one unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, an energy spike, can tip the balance from barely managing to crisis. Food insecurity has become a quiet epidemic. Food banks report record usage, lines longer, supplies thinner, volunteers exhausted. Households that once enjoyed abundance now ration not for luxury but for survival. Meals are smaller, less frequent, and carefully calculated, a painful reminder that modern life has become a constant negotiation with necessity. If these trends continue, the effects on health, education, and future productivity could be catastrophic.
The middle class is shrinking, squeezed from both ends by rising costs and stagnant wages. Savings evaporate. Debt grows heavier with every month. Small businesses close quietly, their closures unnoticed in national headlines but devastating to the communities they served. Job security erodes as economic slowdown tightens its grip, leaving workers anxious, unsure if the paycheck they rely on will exist next month. This is a quiet collapse. It doesn't announce itself with flashing warnings. It creeps into kitchens, living rooms. It whispers in the pauses of conversations, in the long stares at bills. It transforms neighborhoods into zones of survival, where fear becomes routine and hope a fragile commodity. And yet, for all the visible suffering, many Canadians continue. They adapt, they endure, they hold on, even as the weight grows heavier, the pressure more relentless. But endurance has limits, resilience is tested, and the truth is impossible to ignore. The crisis has left the realm of possibility and entered the realm of inevitability. The quiet collapse is here, and the question no one can yet answer is how far it will spread. The signs are unmistakable, even if many try to ignore them. Wages are unlikely to rise fast enough to keep pace with the relentless climb of living costs. Interest rates, though adjusted, still weigh heavily on households. Every month, millions of Canadians face the same impossible choices: pay the rent, buy food, or cover the basics. The gap between income and essentials is not shrinking, it is widening, a slow fracture growing across the nation. Without decisive change, housing pressures will intensify. Renters will pay more than half of their income in some cities. Mortgage defaults could rise, pushing banks and communities into precarious positions. Food insecurity will deepen, stretching social support systems to the brink. These pressures rarely remain isolated. The strain spreads through neighborhoods, workplaces, and families, creating an invisible tension that shapes the very fabric of society.
The chain reaction of economic strain shows no signs of stopping. Scarce supply, rising demand, and policy delays interact with global market volatility to create a perfect storm. Even modest disruptions, a poor harvest, energy spikes, labor shortages, now ripple faster and hit harder than before. What was once considered manageable is no longer predictable. Ordinary Canadians have become frontline observers of forces they cannot control, witnessing the slow creep of instability in their homes, their kitchens, their bank statements. And yet, beneath these numbers lies a deeper tension. Hope flickers alongside fear. Families cling to routines, communities organize, local support networks grow stronger. But the question looms larger every day. Can resilience withstand pressure without relief? The quiet collapse, the rising anxiety, the shrinking middle class, they are all warnings, signals of an escalation that is building momentum. This is not just a moment of struggle, it is a trajectory. Each month that wages fail to catch up, each month that housing costs rise, each month that inflation erodes essentials, the path forward narrows. Canada is at a crossroads. The economy teeters, the people strain, and the question becomes not if the consequences will intensify, but how far they will reach. It is a future charged with uncertainty, heavy with potential disaster, yet alive with human determination. The tension is palpable. You feel it in the streets, in the stores, in the homes of millions. And as the country braces, the silent question persists. What happens if this continues? If the chain reaction is not stopped, if the pressures mount faster than relief arrives, the coming months could redefine life for generations. Canada stands on the edge of an unprecedented crisis, and the answer to what comes next remains unwritten. The story comes full circle in the quietest rooms, the empty kitchens, the cold aisles of grocery stores. Families who once dreamed of stability now calculate survival in every decision. The middle class, once the backbone of a prosperous nation, shrinks under pressure, leaving behind a fragile society trying to hold itself together. Foreclosures, rising rents, mounting debt, they are no longer abstract statistics. They are lived reality.
Canada's present crisis echoes the shadows of history. The Great Depression of nearly a century ago reshaped generations, leaving scars in families, communities, and the national psyche. Today, though the world is different, the patterns feel eerily familiar. Scarcity, anxiety, and a slow erosion of security. Streets are quieter, homes are tighter, and the weight of uncertainty is carried silently in every household. And yet, the nation endures. Families adapt. This is not just an economic story. It is a human story, a story of hunger, fear, and courage, a story of a nation standing at a crossroads, teetering between recovery and collapse.